Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Tom and here on How to Play the Blues, 12-bar blues 5.0. Yes, we're going far, ladies and gentlemen. In this lesson we're gonna learn about how to make that blues progression, that 12-bar blues, even more advanced. And we're gonna use some of the substitute chords that we learned in the previous video. So if this is too confusing, this lesson, please go back one video, and if that's too confusing, go back a couple more and look at the whole tutorial as sort of a whole. You start at the beginning and you get to here, but if you're okay with this and you learn something from this, then please keep watching. So we learned how to play a 12-bar blues, we learned how to play a bit of an advanced 12-bar blues, and now we're going to learn how to play, I think it's more of a jazzy 12-bar blues. I love playing this type of 12-bar blues. I don't know if it has any name to it. Maybe it's a bit of a West Coast thing, because West Coast blues is quite jazzy in my opinion. So without further ado, here we go. This is what we're going to learn. So this is the thing that we're going to learn. We're going to change up the blues progression quite a bit. Note that you don't have to do all these changes in your 12-bar blues. You can just pick them out and just use them wherever you want to. You can stay to the standard 12-bar blues and just change one chord. But the reason I'm showing you this big variation of it is because you can use all these elements in any way you would like. So start it off with playing the G, the 1. So for the second bar we're going to the 4, the C, and back to the G for 2 bars. Then we're going to go to that C. And the second bar, the 6th bar of the 12-bar blues progression, we're going to a C sharp diminished 7. Then we're going to go back to the G. But instead of playing the G twice, we're going to run back. We're going to get these 7 chords to an E7. Then we're going to go to the 2, which will be A minor 7. Then to the D. And then as a turnaround, we're going to go 1, 6, 2, 5. So that's all we're gonna do, and it messes up the whole 12-bar blues standard, but it gives it a whole lot of different sound, and I just love playing it. It's a lot of fun. So here we go in more detail. So that G7 we already learned. Then that C9 we already learned. So that's 2 bars we got already, and then back to the G. And we're going to go back to that C, and then that C sharp diminished. So I explained this in the previous video, and you can move it around. So in any way you like, and you can actually, it gives a lot of tension if you move it around. So you can go. So right here, what we're doing here at that section, we're actually using that G7 jazz chord, but we're removing our index finger because I like it's more subtle that way. And we're moving it back, so we're going G7, F sharp 7, F7, and then to an E7, which is just a normal E chord with your ring finger removed, which will make it a 7. So that's all there is to it. That's it. That's all I'm doing. Then from there we're going to go to the 2, which is an A minor 7, to the 5, which in this case is a D9. You can make it a D7 or just a normal D, whichever you prefer. I like the D9. So, and from here we're going to get a real jazz turnaround. So the turnaround is 1, 6, 2, 5. Now to explain this in more detail, look at it like this. You get your major scales, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? We're just going to count to 6 and a major scale. So 1, 2. So 1 we already know is our G. 2 would be our A minor 7. 3, 4, 5 would be our D. And 6 would be an E. So the way I like to play this is just hit my G, then take my E as a 7 chord. Then my 2 as an A minor 7, and my D as a D9. That's the way I like it. I prefer those notes, how they match and everything. You can use them any way you like. You can even make that A, you can make it a major 7. In the jazz they do this a lot, and you can make it, and you can do a lot with that. And also a thing I like to do, and I don't know if a lot of people do this, but in that D9 you have your bass on your D. That's the 5th fret of the A string. I like to move that bass up one, so I get the 5th fret on the E string, on the fat E, which gives it that, yeah, it gets a little bit more bass. But I also like that the bass doesn't change from the A minor 7 to the E to the D7. It doesn't change. The bass stays the same. So it's, I don't know. It builds tension for me, and I like it. I like it, especially. You see, you can run back from that chord like that by just doing, and that's your G again. So this is a way of making the progression a whole lot more interesting, in my opinion. When I first learned this, a world opened up for me. I started adding chords. I started putting bass lines in here, like doing, and this is a long time ago, but doing stuff like. Just adding a bass line in there, and you can really mess around with that a lot. So please do that. Just mess around with this. Take your old 12-bar blues progressions that you already have and start adding in stuff that you like. Take something from this, take something from that, and I'm pretty sure in no time you will learn how to play any type of blues you like. Now, there's one more thing I want to do in this video, and this is something I actually learned from a gypsy jazz musician. He taught this to me, and you can use this in the blues as well. And after learning this, I actually learned that one of my favorite musicians, Tom Waits, has a whole song based on this little trick that I'm going to show you. And you can use it practically anywhere on any chord, but let me just give you an example of it. If you have your G chord right here, you also have another G chord right here. Now, I don't know if many of you know this G chord, but it sounds great. It gives the G a bit more tension, and it's actually exactly the same notes, only they're lined up differently. So the way we play this other G chord, it's just a normal G major, is we play with the middle finger we play the 7th fret on the E string, the fat E. Then we skip the A, we mute that. With that same middle finger you can mute that string. And then on the D string we play the 5th fret with our index finger. And on the G string we play the 7th fret with our ring finger. So that's it. Now, if you want to make this a 7 chord, all you have to do, on the B string, add that 6th fret. Just as you would with a normal G, right? You would add that pinky there. That same tone can make this G a 7 as well. So I hardly ever use the 7, to be honest, right there. So I just use it like that. Maybe it's laziness, sloppiness, or whatever, but I hardly ever do that. And to make this a minor chord, just keep in mind that middle finger on top, that's your how do you call it? Doesn't matter. That's what makes it a major. So if you move that 1 fret back to the 6th fret, you get a G minor. So minor, move that middle finger up to the 7th fret, and you get a major. All right. So now I'm gonna teach you a little trick on how to move from that G to that other G. And the real easy way to do this is to use 2 sort of diminished chords in between. Actually, the first one's an E7 with a bass, with a 5 as a bass. Never mind that. I'll just show it to you. I'm sorry. So the G and to the G. Real easy, right? But it sounds awesome if you put it in the blues. So let me explain those 2 chords in between. So the first one is your middle finger on the 5th fret, index finger on the 4th fret of the D string, and the ring finger on the 5th fret of the G string. And that A string, you keep it muted. This is actually a D chord, a D7, but we're going to move that middle finger up in the bass line, so we're going to move that middle finger to the E string. And then this whole chord, this whole thing we got, and also if you looked at the previous video and you learned about the diminish, it can also be a diminish. I wouldn't use the whole chord, I would just use the top 3 strings because it's more of an E than a diminished, a D7 than a diminished. So this whole chord we're going to move it up one fret so that our middle finger is on the 6th string, and then we're just going to move our ring finger and middle finger 1 fret. So we're going to go from the 6th to the 7th fret with both those fingers. We're going to leave the index finger on the 5th fret, and we get that G chord, and you can run it up and you can run it down. So let's run it up and run it down. Real easy, right? You can use this with any chord. You can do this from a G, you can do this from an A. You can do this from a C. The pattern stays the same, and that's why it's real interesting. So let me explain to you how I would use this in a blues progression. So I'm going to take the very same blues progression that we learned earlier and shove it in there. And even with the simpler progressions, it works really well if you're going from the 1 to the 4 by example. So I'm going. So that's how you can use it. But if I were to play it in a more jazzy style blues, and I'll play it very slow so you can really see what I'm doing right here. So we're going to go into the jazzy style blues and we're going to add it in there. As you can see, it works. It works in there. And as I was saying earlier, the Tom Waits song, I'm not sure about the name. But he does the same thing. He's got sort of a 12-bar blues thing going on, only he uses the 1, 4, and 5 and a bit of the 6. And it's not really a standard 12-bar blues, but he goes. That's the theme he's doing. So he's actually using that method. I don't know if he came up with it or I just learned it from a gypsy jazz guy and I loved it, and I started trying it out in the blues. And that's the great thing. If you learn something from someone else, even if it's not blues, it might just fit in there. You know, you might be able to make it. So hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you learned a lot from this, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.